Kai's Vendetta by Tripp Mehew. Prologue. Lions and Wolves. Gulf of Aden, 7th of February 2021, 15:30 Greenwich Mean Time. The Sea King had been struck with an RPG several hours ago, and the damaged hull still spewed thick, acrid smoke. The choking cloud blanketed everything with its stench before drifting up to the naked blue sky in a lonely black spire. The dying yacht swayed gently beneath the blistering sun, like a forgotten bobber in a pond as nearby water rippled beneath an approaching gust. Stephen Erickson adjusted his hat and wiped his brow, grateful for the short-lived wind. It was followed by another gust, then another as the aimless vessel began to rock. Although the ship's increased motion made shooting harder, the salty sea breeze was a welcome relief from the sweltering heat and the smell of burning fuel and cordite. Stephen sat watching out over the starboard side of the craft. Their attackers surrounded them in smaller vessels, watching the distance like wolves. He figured that the only reason they had stopped firing was out of fear of sinking their prey before being able to loot it. Frankly, it was a welcome respite. Stephen's team of 6 was dangerously low on ammunition. There were 3 attacking vessels in total, with an unknown number of crew. They were all similar in build, so the team named them. Alpha was off the starboard side. Bravo was roughly to their port stern. These 2 had stayed within a kilometer for several hours. A third boat, Charlie, had retreated after the last firefight and remained 2 kilometers off the bow. Just a few hours earlier, the Sea King had been an impressive ship. Nearly 100 feet long, it had featured lavish appointments and was equipped with cutting-edge nav and comm gear. But most of that equipment had been destroyed during the initial attack, and the last contact the team made with the Navy was an hour earlier. Stephen turned towards the bridge from his low, prone position. "Hey Mac, what's going on up there?" "Nothing. There's no update," a voice yelled back from the navigation room, stationed atop the raised portion of the deck in the back of the ship. "The signal keeps going in and out. I can't figure it out." Since securing the ship and finally making contact with the Navy, there had been no support. They had been told early on that a package was being assembled, but aside from confirming their grid location, they had no evidence of anything actually being done. It didn't make sense. Worse, it stank. They couldn't have been more than 100 miles from the closest destroyer, the USS Ronald Reagan. They were out of radio contact for some time, and the ship had drifted aimlessly before the anchor had caught. But they weren't that far out of effective support range, especially not for aerial assets. "Erickson!" Judson Judd Myers called out from his perch on the bow. "You see this?" Stephen turned his attention back to the sea. The boat in front of him, Alpha, was about 500 meters out. It looked like a run-down fishing vessel, about 20 feet long and covered in more rust than paint. Some of their attackers had resurfaced aboard Alpha. He watched them through the scope mounted on his MK-14, desperately skinny. They were clothed in a variety of dirty but brightly colored civilian t-shirts and shorts. They would have been comical looking if not for the AK-47s. Stephen had been watching Alpha and the skinnies for just a few moments before he saw it. Another ship. "Shit! Yeah, I got him, Judd." He trained his scope on it. It was further out, just barely visible, but moving quickly towards them. "Who the fuck is that?" Judd grunted. "Hang on," Stephen squinted, trying to make out details. It was bigger than the other boats, that was certain. Its wake made its dimensions hard to make out, but it was not a Navy ship. It looked like another fishing vessel, only larger and painted black. Atop the superstructure was a fluttering black flag. He watched as it barreled towards them, and a few seconds later he confirmed his suspicion. It flew a black flag with a white circle in the middle. "We've got Indians," he grimaced, using the team jargon for Islamic State fighters. "Indians?" Judd repeated. "Are you fucking kidding me?" "That's what it looks like." A voice came over Stephen's earpiece. "What you guys got over there?" It was Murph. He was on the other side of the ship, near the stern. "We've got a black vessel approaching the starboard side, about 1 click out," Stephen replied. "It looks like they're running an Indian flag." "All right," Murph acknowledged. "I've got skinnies moving over here. They're up to something." "Yeah, we've got that too." "Let's put a few down range and get 'em ducking again." Murph said, his tone all business. "What are you looking like on ammo?" "Roger." Steven checked his remaining ammo. "I've got 3 mags left." "Roger," Murph acknowledged, his voice steady and professional. "Nothing else we can do. Make 'em count." Steven directed his attention back to the stationary vessel in front of him. He watched through the scope as one man held an RPG muzzle up while another loaded a rocket into the top of it. He calmed his breathing, allowed the gentle rock of the ship to carry his crosshairs over the target. A stream of stinging sweat ran into his eyes, but he kept focus as he waited for the shot. The moment came, and with his breath in pause, he slowly and gently squeezed the trigger. Crack! He closed his eyes to wipe the sweat off his brow while Judd announced, "That's a hit. Nice shot, buddy." Crack! 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 Those 3 shots echoed off the stern from Murph's position. Steven regained his sight picture to see the vessel's deck was now clear, its occupants back in their hiding spots. He looked up from the scope. The Indian boat was only 700 meters out now. "Hey Murph, these new guys are still coming?" "Check their brakes." Steven smirked. The Indians had passed Alpha and were now just barely 700 meters out. He aimed at one of the outboard motors attached to its stern and sent a trio of rounds downrange. Crack! 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 Nothing. The ship was now 200 meters off. Steven wiped another bead of sweat from his brow. "They ain't stopping." The approaching craft opened fire on them from an unseen porthole. The rounds whistled overhead and slammed into the yacht's once elegant pilot house, which was now holier than the Pope's skivvies. "Fuck!" Murph snarled. "Light 'em up!" Judd opened up with his M249. The rounds hit the small craft's bridge, but it maintained course and speed. It sped towards the bow of the Sea King while unleashing another burst of automatic fire. "Cover!" The rounds came in all over the place, spraying the whole deck, shattering the last of the bridge's intact plexiglass. Mac was in a bad spot. Judd rolled to his left and started crawling towards the front of the ship. Steven did the same. Murph came in over the earpiece, but Steven could almost hear his raised voice from the other side of the ship. "Stay in your lanes! I say again, stay in your lanes! Let them come around!" Murph was right, so Steven turned and aimed his rifle starboard. He felt a pinch in his arm. Fuck, he was hit, but it wasn't bad. The occupants of Alpha were standing again. They weren't just suppressing anymore. They were aiming. And a round struck the bulkhead 2 inches from his head. Shit! He hit the deck as dozens of impacts hammered into the bulkhead where his head had been. The stream of incoming fire climbed up the side of the bridge tower, which was Mac's nest. "Mac, get the fuck out of that tower!" "What do you want me to do with the captain?" Mac asked, no defiance or hesitation in his voice. He was tense, but controlled. Matter of fact, tactical. Every moment Steven spent with these men was an honor. "What's his status?" "I think he's alive, but still napping." The enemy fire abated. "Can you get him to move?" "I don't think so." "Then fuck him and get out of there," Steven snapped. "Cover me!" A fresh volley of fire slammed into the Sea King's pilot house. Judd returned fire from the bow with his saw, covering the Indians while Steven let off several more rounds towards Alpha. More rounds came back in response as Mac scrambled down the stairs and threw himself down on the deck. He crawled frantically towards Steven's position as Steven dropped a mag and loaded another, his second to last. Judd's saw went quiet. "They're pulling off," Judd reported a few seconds later. "Fuck, man," Mac said as he drew close to Steven. "Your arm!" Steven looked down at the blood-soaked sleeve and winced. "Yeah, I know. Where the hell are Lodge and Simpson?" he asked, referring to the other 2 members of their crew. Lodge had been hit hours ago, and Simpson, their medic, had taken him below. As if on cue, Simpson came over the headset. "What the fuck is going on up there?" Murph cut in. "Get up here, Simpson. How's Lodge?" There was a pause before Simpson came on again. "I'm moving up now. Cover me." "Shit," Mac muttered, sharing a brief but meaningful look with Steven. More gunfire erupted from the stern, a good mix of incoming and outgoing. "They're gonna make another pass!" Judd yelled. "Charlie's coming back too!" "Shit!" Steven and Mac said in unison. He looked at Mac, who knew the score as well as he did. There was no fear in his eyes. No distance from the moment. He was all there, right beside him, and Steven took pride in knowing they'd face these next moments together. "You ready?" he asked. Mac nodded. Alpha's steady burst of fire suddenly abated. Stephen moved to a kneeling position, now exposed above the bulwark. Mac followed suit. The yacht's deck was higher than the small fishing vessels, so they had a solid firing angle. 2 attackers opposed themselves on approach. Stephen opened fire, followed by Mac. Judd joined in a few seconds later, then Murph, and then a 5th, which must have been Simpson. They poured short, crisp bursts into their assailants, who ducked down and blind-fired their AKs like the amateurs they were. Pow! Stephen recognized an RPG-7's launch and ducked on pure instinct. The warhead tore into the side of their ship with an ear-splitting bang. He lost his balance momentarily as the ship rocked beneath him. Smoke poured from the fresh hole in the stern, and the sound of groaning metal was somehow audible over the gunfire. What the hell are they doing? Trying to sink the ship? He thought briefly about breaking for their Zodiac, but trying to climb down it now would leave them hopelessly exposed. They were cut off, surrounded, and quickly draining their ammo, but worse than that, they had been abandoned. There was no reason for reinforcements to be delayed this long. Someone had pulled their plug. Someone way the fuck up the chain. Shit! Keep firing! Someone yelled. Stephen was dry. He started loading his last mag. Pow! Another RPG, this time from Alpha. This one slammed into the starboard side. Bang! Stephen somehow ended up on his back. Blinking hard through the blotches in his vision, Stephen sat up. He could hardly breathe through the smoke. Mac was lying motionless on his back a few yards from Stephen, his torso slick with blood. Stephen grabbed the back of his collar with one arm and started pulling him towards the center of the deck, firing into the black haze towards Alpha with a one-handed grip of his weapon. Like a shifting tide, the team's fire slowed while the AKs intensified. Bullet holes appeared in the yacht's gunwales all around him. Stephen felt a round go through his shoulder, sending a numbing pulse down his arm. Shit. As hard as he tried, his hand would not maintain its hold on Mac's vest. He reluctantly started crawling backwards. He had no choice but to let go of Mac and move to his cover position. After a few seconds, he realized his rifle wasn't firing. A brass casing was lodged in the chamber. He dug at it with his gloved finger. The yacht was now listing badly to the starboard side. There was some mumbling over the headset, but he couldn't make anything out over the storm of fire all around him. Stephen finally got the casing out. It only took him 3 seconds to fire his last 5 rounds. More headset mumbling, then quiet. The enemy firing slowed. "Judd!" he yelled through the smoke. Nothing. He lay on his back and tried to catch his breath as a few more stray rounds came in over his head. He heard whooping and cries of victory from one of the skinny boats. After taking a moment to catch his breath, he realized he'd been hit in the chest. He pushed himself backwards as the ship continued to lurch to its side. The ship was half fire and smoke now, pouring 3 columns of thick, rancid soot into the air. Something exploded below deck, bucking the stern. The yacht was in its death throes. He keyed his headset. "Anyone on the net? I'm hit!" Silence. Stephen turned towards the bow. He might be able to reach Judd, or at least get out of the smoke. He crawled on his back, pushing mostly with his legs since he only had one working arm. As soon as he broke through the haze, he saw Judd, flat and unmoving on the deck. The attackers started firing again, and he was exposed now by the listing of the ship. Scrambling to his feet, he made a dash for Judd's saw. No surrender. He reached the weapon. He flipped the feed tray cover open and loaded a fresh belt. He knew he was hit again, but tried to ignore it. Lying on his back, he aimed over his feet and began spraying Alpha with fire. "Fucking bastards! Where the fuck is the Navy?" Pow! Boom! This one hit behind him, port side. The sudden pitch of the deck sent him sliding to the starboard. His finger never let up on the trigger as he slid. Assholes! His foot caught on a half-ruined bulwark, bringing him to a stop. He had to reach cover. He had to put every last round into these fuckers. What a shit show! Who the fuck pulled our plug? His vision narrowed and he tried to stand, but lost his balance and nearly fell over the side. He'd been hit again, this time center mass. It knocked the wind out of him. Trying to catch his breath. Just for a second. His eyelids drooped, but he held on to the saw. His body went cold, and he was vaguely aware of the bullets landing all around him. For a moment he forgot where he was and the world went dark. Just catch your breath, damn it! He dropped the saw and collapsed over the rail. Hitting the water jolted him awake. He felt cold as the ocean washed over him. A strange vision of diving the reefs with Kai and friends briefly ran through his head. The cold turned warm, like a long-lost lover's embrace. And 1,000 memorable dives from his youth flashed before his mind. They were good memories, and Kai was in nearly all of them. But the cold and dark slowly engulfed him, snuffing out even those fleeting memories one by one. And there, half a world from where his life's journey began, Stephen Erickson returned to the sea.